18 years. That's how long I worked for Marcus Thompson at Thompson Building Supply. I started when paint cans were still metal and calculators had pull switches. I knew every lumber grade, every supplier's delivery schedule, every contractor in 3 counties. Then one Tuesday morning, Marcus told me I was finished. Too old to learn the new computer system, he said. I was 55 years old and suddenly worthless. But hidden inside an old shoebox in my basement was something my mom and dad left behind. Something they started when I was just a baby. My name is Robert Chen. 3 months ago, I managed the biggest building supply warehouse in Michigan. I ordered materials for houses, schools, and shopping centers. Every morning at 5:30, I unlocked the gates. Every evening, I counted the trucks and locked up again. I taught new workers how to read blueprints. I solved problems when shipments arrived wrong or customers needed something special. When Marcus's brother tried to overcharge our best customers, I caught him and fixed it quietly. I'm sharing this because sometimes you think everything is over. You think you failed. Then you discover your parents planted something beautiful years ago, just waiting for the right moment to grow. This isn't about being rich. This is about how 2 people who worked simple jobs knew something about tomorrow that a warehouse owner never understood. My dad, William, died in 2008. He worked at the post office for 39 years. He delivered mail in rain, snow, and summer heat. Never missed a single day. My mom, Susan, passed away 4 years after him. She worked at the library, putting books back on shelves and helping kids find stories. They lived in a small house they bought in 1980. They fixed their own car. They grew vegetables in the backyard. And while they were saving pennies in glass jars and buying day-old bread from the bakery, they were doing something I never knew about. Something that would save me when I thought I was finished. But I'm jumping ahead. First, let me tell you what it feels like to give your whole life to someone's business, then hear you're not needed anymore. Let me tell you about walking into a lawyer's office with nothing but worry and walking out seeing my whole life in a new way. Most important, let me tell you why my parents, who never had more than $3,000 in the bank at one time, knew something about John Bogle that would save their son many years later. This story is for everyone who's been told they're too old. It's for anyone who wondered if working hard still matters. And it's for people who thought their parents were just regular folks, not understanding they were actually very, very smart. So let me take you back 3 months. Back to the gray office where Marcus Thompson, the man who once said I was his best worker, explained why 55 meant my time was done. His son, Kevin, sat next to him. Kevin was 26, fresh from college, wearing expensive shoes. He'd never loaded a truck in winter or helped a customer pick the right screws at closing time. But he had ideas about apps and websites and making everything digital. I looked at the wall where Marcus kept photos from big projects we'd completed together. There I was in every picture, standing next to him, both of us wearing hard hats and smiling because we just delivered materials for the new hospital downtown. That photo was about to teach me something my parents understood long ago. That some things grow slowly, quietly, becoming more valuable while nobody's watching. My parents looked like regular workers who saved aluminum foil and washed plastic containers. But they were actually secret money wizards. I started at Thompson Building Supply when I was 37. Back then, Marcus ran one warehouse on the edge of town, right off Highway 12. The yard was messy. Lumber piles everywhere. The office was tiny, barely room for 2 desks. But Marcus worked hard. He knew wood and cement and pipes. He knew how to talk to construction crews. My friend Danny worked delivering supplies to job sites. This guy needs help organizing, Danny told me at church one Sunday. His paperwork is chaos. But Robert, he understands building, and he wants to grow. I was working at a furniture store then, carrying sofas and arranging displays. It paid okay, but I wasn't going anywhere. My wife Linda was expecting our daughter Amy, and I needed something better. First time I walked into that warehouse, Marcus was yelling at someone on the phone about a missing delivery while simultaneously trying to fix a forklift. He saw me, waved me over, and said, "You the organized guy Danny sent? Can you start today? I got invoices somewhere in these boxes. Maybe that pile, maybe that one. And the cement truck driver needs a signature, but I can't find the order form." That was Marcus. Always moving, always building, never stopping. I found his invoices under a stack of plumbing catalogs. I found the cement order taped to the wall behind a calendar. By end of day, I'd organized his disaster office, called back 3 angry customers, and helped load trucks when his worker didn't show up. "You stay," Marcus said at closing, buying me a sandwich from the corner shop. "You're my operations manager now." What's operations manager mean? I don't know. But you manage everything I'm too busy to manage. Deal. Linda understood why I said yes. "He sees something in you," she told me that night, rubbing her pregnant belly. "And you see something in him. That's rare, Robert." For 18 years, that belief powered everything. When Marcus wanted to expand the yard, I found the property, talked to the sellers, and supervised the construction. I trained every new worker on safety rules and how Mrs. Patterson always needed her supplies delivered by 3 p.m., how Mr. Rodriguez only bought treated lumber, how the Harrison Company celebrated finishing projects by giving us thank you lunches. My daughter Amy grew up playing in empty boxes at the warehouse. My son David learned to count by stacking paint sample cards. Linda brought the kids every Friday afternoon, and Marcus would stop working, dust on his hands, and boom, "These are my future employees. Amy, you getting tall like a basketball star. David, smart like your father." The business grew year after year. Second location opened when I was 44. Third and fourth came when I was 49. Each time, I was there from planning to opening day. I knew which suppliers delivered on time, which equipment lasted longest, which neighborhoods needed building supplies. I created the safety manuals, the ordering system, the schedule that kept everything running smooth. But more than systems, I fixed people problems. When Marcus's nephew started stealing tools from Location 2, I caught him and handled it privately. When the warehouse manager at Location 3 got sick and disappeared for a week, I ran that location myself until we hired someone new. When Marcus's ex-wife tried to claim half the business in court, I organized all the paperwork at midnight in Marcus's kitchen. "Robert, you're not just my employee," Marcus would say during late planning meetings. "You're family. This empire we're building, it's for everyone. My kids, your kids, we're making something that lasts forever." I believed him. Every single word. When my dad died and I needed time off for the funeral, Marcus came to the service, stood beside me in the cemetery, and said, "William raised a wonderful son. He'd be proud of everything you've built here." When my mom got sick 4 years later, Marcus sent flowers to the hospital every week. "Family helps family," he said. By my 55th birthday, we had 4 warehouses employing 150 people. I knew everyone's name, their children's names, their stories. I thought I was building something permanent, something that mattered. I thought loyalty and hard work meant security. I was wrong about Marcus. But I was also wrong about my parents, who were playing a longer, smarter game than anyone could see. 2 weeks after I turned 55, everything fell apart. It was a Thursday morning in February, cold and gray. I arrived at the main warehouse at 6 a.m. like always. I was checking delivery schedules when Marcus's assistant, Carol, called. "Mr. Thompson wants you at the office. Kevin will be there too." Kevin, Marcus's son, fresh from business school, had been hanging around for 5 months. He wore suits to the warehouse and carried a tablet everywhere, taking notes while watching us work. He'd never loaded a single board, never stayed late to help a customer, never dealt with a broken heater on a Saturday. But he had opinions about everything. I drove to Marcus's office at the new building we'd opened last year. Marcus sat behind his big wooden desk, the one I'd helped him choose at an auction. Kevin leaned back in the leather chair, typing on his phone. The walls showed photos from warehouse openings over the years. In every single picture, I stood right there beside Marcus. "Robert, my friend," Marcus started, and immediately something felt wrong. In 18 years, he'd never called me friend in that worried voice, like he was sorry for something that hadn't happened yet. "Please sit." I sat. Kevin put his phone down and pulled out papers with colorful charts. "Mr. Chen, I've been analyzing our operations," he began, not letting his father speak. "We need to discuss restructuring." Restructuring? I looked at Marcus, but he was staring at the desk. "Marcus, last month you said business was up 40%. We're about to open location 5 in Dearborn. The business needs updating, Kevin continued. We're moving to digital inventory, online ordering, social media advertising. The industry has moved beyond traditional management. I can learn new systems, I said, my heart beating fast. Marcus, you know I always learn. Remember when we got the new forklift computers? I figured them out in 3 days. Marcus finally looked up, and his eyes were cold, empty of the kindness I'd known for almost 2 decades. Robert, you're too old for this business now. Young people speak a different language. Twitter this, YouTube that. Kevin understands this world. Too old. The words felt like ice. I'm 55, not 85. I work 60 hours a week. Last week when the roof leaked at location 2, who fixed it at 11 p.m.? Last month when the safety inspector showed up unexpected at location 3, who handled everything? That's exactly the point, Kevin interrupted. We don't need someone fixing roofs anymore. We need someone who understands analytics, conversion rates, digital marketing metrics. I stood up, my hands shaking. Marcus, I built the systems that run all your warehouses. I trained every manager. When your own family stole from you, I protected you. Don't be emotional, Marcus said, waving his hand like shooing a fly. This is business. You knew this would happen someday. Did I? When you called me family. When you stood at my dad's funeral. When you promised we were building something together. Kevin slid papers across the desk. 3 weeks' pay for each year. 54 weeks' salary. Very fair. I looked at the termination paper. Effective immediately. After 18 years, I wouldn't even say goodbye to the workers. My hands shook reading the contract saying I couldn't work at any building supply company within 100 miles for 3 years. You're stopping me from working in the only business I know, I whispered. Standard procedure, Kevin replied. Sign here and here. I looked at Marcus one last time. You said I was like family. He shrugged, so casual it hurt like a punch. I have family. Real family. Business is business, Robert. I signed the papers. What else could I do? 54 weeks of pay sounded like a lot for 30 seconds until I remembered Amy's wedding next year, David's school expenses, the house payment that still had 12 years left. I walked out with a check that might last 5 months if we were very careful and a contract that made me unemployable in my only skill. The security guard, Tommy, who I'd hired 2 years before, couldn't look at me as he watched me pack my desk. 18 years fit in one cardboard box. Walking to my car, I saw Kevin through the window, already sitting at my desk, feet up, talking on his phone and laughing. Telling Linda was harder than anything I'd ever done. She was making dinner when I came home at 10 a.m., something I'd never done in 18 years. She saw my face and the box in my hands, and the pot of soup almost dropped. He fired you, she gasped, sitting at the kitchen table. Marcus fired you? I sat beside her and explained everything. The meeting, Kevin's charts, the contract stopping me from working at warehouses. Linda didn't cry at first. She just stared at the refrigerator where we'd hung a photo from Marcus's 60th birthday party, the one where he had his arm around me, holding up a trophy for best supplier in the county. We'll figure this out, she finally said, but her voice sounded empty. You'll find something different. For 3 weeks I tried. I sent out 50 resumes. Every warehouse job was forbidden by my contract. I applied for manager positions at stores, factories, shipping companies. The responses were all the same. We've decided to hire a candidate who better fits our needs. Translation: someone younger. One hiring manager actually told me the truth on the phone. Look, Robert, you're qualified, but honestly, my boss won't hire anyone over 50. He thinks they're too slow with technology. Our savings disappeared faster than I'd imagined. Amy called about her wedding, excited about flowers and decorations. $5,000 we didn't have. David needed a new computer for school. The washing machine broke. The car needed new tires. One morning, after another sleepless night adding and subtracting numbers that didn't work, I was going through my mom's things, looking for any savings bonds or forgotten money we could use. She'd kept everything in an old metal box in the basement, organized in her neat handwriting. Tax papers from the 1970s, my school pictures, every Mother's Day card we'd ever given her. That's when I found it. A small blue envelope marked Robert, City Savings Bank, 1970. Inside was an old bank book for an account I'd completely forgotten existed. I suddenly remembered that day perfectly. I was 5 years old, had just gotten $10 from my grandmother for my birthday. My Uncle Frank, my dad's brother, had taken me to City Savings Bank in his old truck that smelled like coffee and newspapers. "Every person needs their own money," Uncle Frank had said, his big hands helping mine write on the deposit paper. "This account is yours. Don't touch it until you really, really need it. Understand? Not for toys, not for candy, not for anything except a true emergency." I put in that $10 and completely forgot about it. Life happened. School, marriage, kids, Marcus's warehouses. The account had been sitting there for 50 years. Looking at our situation now with bills everywhere and no job coming in, I thought maybe the account had grown to $200 with interest. Maybe $500 if I was really lucky. Even $200 would buy groceries for 2 weeks. City Savings Bank had been bought by Great Lakes Bank in the 1990s, then by Midwest Trust in 2012. The original building on Oak Street had been completely changed, all glass and computers where old wood and marble used to be. I walked in feeling silly, carrying a 50-year-old bank book like some ancient relic. The teller, a young man named Jason with styled hair and a name tag, looked at the bank book like I'd handed him a dinosaur bone. "Whoa. This is seriously old school. I've never actually seen one of these in real life, just in training videos." "I know it's ancient," I said, embarrassed. "The account probably doesn't exist anymore." No, these old accounts are still totally valid. They just need special access. Let me get my manager. She'll love this." Jennifer Martinez, the branch manager, came out within minutes. She was maybe in her mid-30s. Professional but friendly. The kind of person who actually smiled when she talked. She looked at the bank book carefully, tracing the account number with her finger. "Mr. Chen, this is amazing. These old city savings accounts are super rare. Let me search this in our old system." She brought me to her office, a quiet room away from the bank counter. "Account number 0082141970. Let's see what we find here." She typed slowly, using what looked like an ancient computer program. All green letters on a black screen. Then she stopped typing. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. "Is something wrong?" I asked, my stomach dropping. "Is the account gone?" "No, Mr. Chen. The account is definitely active. But there's something very strange here. Something I've never seen in 8 years of banking." Jennifer Martinez stared at her computer, then at me, then back at the screen. She took off her glasses and wiped them like that might change what she was seeing. "Mr. Chen, this account has an automatic investment feature attached. That's extremely weird for a 1970 savings account, especially one opened for a child." "Investment feature?" I leaned closer. "I only put in $10 when I was 5. That's all I ever added." "No, sir. There were more deposits." She turned her screen slightly so I could see the green words on black. $10 every month from 1970 to 2008. The deposits came from account holder William Chen. Then from 2008 to 2012, $10 monthly from Susan Chen. My parents. My throat felt tight. They never told me about this. Not one word. "That's not the strange part," Jennifer continued, her voice full of amazement. "These deposits didn't just sit in savings. They were automatically sent to a fund account that bought the same investment every single month for 50 years. Mr. Chen, do you know what Vanguard Index Fund is?" The room felt like it was spinning. "Jack Bogle's company." "Exactly. Your parents were buying pieces of the Vanguard 500 Index Fund every month since 1970. Do you understand what those investments were worth then versus now?" I gripped my chair. "I know they were cheap in the 1970s. $11 per share in 1970 to be exact," Jennifer said, typing fast. Now, your $10 monthly investment bought fractional shares, but they added up over time. Mr. Chen, the Vanguard 500 index fund has grown about 10% every year on average. Your account bought shares every month for 50 years. She hit print and pages started coming from her printer. Your account bought fractional shares every single month for 50 years. The compound growth, the dividends that bought more shares, the accumulation over time. She pulled the pages and spread them on her desk. Mr. Chen, your current account balance is $4,127,892.16. I stared at the number. It didn't look possible. Nothing about this looked possible. There's been a mistake. My parents worked normal jobs. My dad delivered mail. My mom shelved library books. They used coupons. They shopped at thrift stores. The Social Security numbers match perfectly, Jennifer said gently. These deposits definitely came from your parents. But there's more. There's a sealed letter in our vault connected to this account. The instructions say it can only be opened when you access the account. Would you like me to get it? I nodded, unable to make words. Jennifer left and came back with a yellow envelope. My name was written on it in my mom's careful handwriting. Inside was a letter dated May 20th, 1970. And at the bottom, a second note added in 2008 in my dad's shaky handwriting. The first part in my mom's hand said, "Dear Robert, if you're reading this, something hard happened. We know because we set this up so you could only get it when you truly needed it. Not for a boat or a trip, but when life pushes you down. Your Uncle Frank works with a financial advisor in Chicago. He told us about a man named Jack Bogle who thinks differently about investing. Frank said this Bogle person created a fund that buys everything, that he believes in patience over gambling. Your father and I don't understand all the details, but we understand this. Good things grow slowly. Trees, children, love, and apparently money invested carefully. Every $10 we saved came from somewhere. One less restaurant meal, fixing our shoes instead of buying new ones, walking to the store when gas was expensive. We did it because we know the world can be mean. We know that sometimes good, hard-working people get thrown away. If that happens to you, remember that your worth isn't decided by what anyone else thinks. You are our greatest investment. Love, Mom." The second note, added 38 years later in my dad's handwriting, was shorter, "Still adding money every month, son. Bogle was right about patience. Your mother thinks we should tell you, but I say no. You don't need it yet. You're doing wonderful with Marcus. But if you ever do need it, remember we always knew you were worth more than anyone could pay you. Dad, 2008. Jennifer handed me tissues. I didn't realize I was crying until the tears hit the papers. Mr. Chen, there's also a note in the computer from the investment side. Your parents specifically chose Vanguard Index Fund. Never changed it, never sold one single share. They bought through every recession, every boom, every crash. 50 years of $10 purchases. They lived so simply, I whispered. They could have used this money for themselves. Maybe they thought you were a better investment than anything they could buy, Jennifer said softly. I sat in my car outside the bank for 2 hours, holding that letter, reading it again and again. My parents, who never went on vacation farther than the state park, who celebrated their anniversary at the same diner every year, who wore clothes until they had holes, had secretly been building me a fortune $10 at a time. The irony hit me hard. Marcus Thompson, who drove a BMW and wore expensive watches, who constantly talked about building an empire, had thrown me away because he thought my value had ended. Meanwhile, my parents, who drove old cars and wore regular watches, had bet everything on the idea that value grows over time. When I finally went home and told Linda, she sat on the floor, crying. Not from sadness, but from relief and disbelief. Amy drove home from college that evening. David kept asking, "Is this real? Is this actually happening?" We sat around the kitchen table until 2 a.m., reading my parents' letter over and over, laughing and crying at the same time. But the money was only part of the gift. The real present was understanding what my parents had known all along. They'd invested in Jack Bogle's fund, yes, but more importantly, they'd understood his philosophy. Index investing isn't about quick money or flashy wins. It's about recognizing true value and having the patience to let it grow. 3 weeks later, I opened my own store. Nothing fancy, nothing like Marcus's places with their expensive equipment and custom signs. I found a small building in Ypsilanti, the kind of neighborhood shop that had good bones but needed care. I named it William and Susan's Hardware and hung my parents' picture by the cash register. I hired George first. Marcus had fired him 8 months before me, said 6'4" was too old to manage inventory. He cried when I offered him the job. Then came Maria, 59, who Marcus's son Kevin had replaced with someone who knew more about apps than carpentry. Betty, 68, had been let go from another store for being too slow with computers. She remembered every customer's project and preference within days. We opened quietly. No social media campaign, no grand opening event, just good products, fair prices, and people who actually cared about helping others. George's organizational system was perfect. Maria kept everything running smoothly. Betty made every customer feel like they were talking to a helpful neighbor. Word spread the old way, before internet and algorithms. One customer telling another. Family shopping, then coming back, then bringing friends. Within 2 months, we had people waiting at opening time on Saturday mornings. Kevin Thompson showed up 5 months after we opened. He stood in the doorway of my busy store, looking smaller than I remembered. His digital revolution had failed badly. 2 of their 4 warehouses had closed. The ones remaining were struggling. "My father wants to know if you'd consider returning," he said, having to speak loudly over the happy customer noise. "He's willing to negotiate new terms." I looked around my store. George was teaching our newest employee, a 19-year-old named Marcus, how to properly cut glass. Maria was helping a customer pick the right paint while joking in Spanish. Betty was wrapping up a toolbox for Mrs. Kim, our regular who came every Tuesday. "Tell Marcus thanks, but I'm too old for his business," I said. "I'm exactly the right age for mine." Kevin left without buying anything. I heard later that one more Thompson warehouse closed within the year. Marcus sold the business to a corporation. His empire reduced to nothing, all gone. Meanwhile, William and Susan's Hardware grows. We're not an empire. We're just one store that does things correctly. My parents would have loved it. Not because of the success, but because of the thinking behind it. We invest in people not despite their age, but because of it. We value experience, patience, and loyalty. The things that actually become more valuable over time. The $4 million, most of it is still invested, still growing. Because my parents taught me the most important lesson of all. Wealth isn't about what you can buy. It's about what you can build, what you can pass forward, what you can become when someone believes you're worth the investment. Sometimes the greatest fortune isn't discovering money you didn't know existed. It's learning that someone loved you enough to plant seeds whose fruit they'd never taste. Believing completely that someday, when you needed it most, you'd understand that your value was never decided by anyone's opinion, but was always there, quietly growing, waiting for the perfect moment to bloom. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their value only increases with time. And don't forget to subscribe to Boss of Stories for more tales about regular people discovering extraordinary truths. Remember, sometimes the best investment isn't in the stock market, but in believing someone's worth more than the world tells them they are. Until next time, this is Robert's story, but it might just be yours too.